What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL world? How you doing, division rivals? This is Steven Hyder with Gate City Sports Channel. Sports Channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever it is you get around to watching this video. Once again, my name is Steven Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Channel. Look, if you're new to the channel, if you could do me a huge favor, guys, if you decide you like the content, please hit that subscribe button, guys. It does a whole lot for us here in YouTube land. And number two, all my old G's right now, I'm going to ask you to do, hey, you like the video, you want to help out, hit that thumbs up button, guys. It's how we communicate with YouTube and basically get this information and this content pushed out amongst all of YouTube. All right, y'all, today's topic. Listen, there's been rumblings about A.J. Bouye in the trade to the Denver. I didn't expect from our fan base. There's some guys I really respect, the guys that I listen to, I watch a lot. These are guys I think know football. And I felt like I needed to make a video because guys that I know football, guys that I do appreciate and I do respect, have a different viewpoint than me on this. So I felt like maybe it would be helpful if I shared my viewpoint on why I think the Eagles made the right decision steering clear of A.J. Bouye. So today's topic, guys, I'm really going to break down and talk about this idea of the Eagles really missing out on an opportunity to go trade for a guy like A.J. Bouye to improve the secondary. So without further ado, guys, let's roll in today's topic. Let's talk about, did the Eagles miss out on A.J. Bouye? All right, y'all. Let's get to it.
3rd down and 6. Mariota throws and the pass broken.
All right, guys, to start off the premise of the conversation today, what I do want to make known is that everyone that I've listened to, the guys that I really do respect, I listen to their stuff pretty much on a daily basis, you know, the Philly Mikes, the Philly Freshes, the Lord Brunsons of the world, who are very much in favor of that A.J. Bouye trade, you know, thinking that Howie Roseman and the Eagles should have been more involved than what it appears to be. We don't know the full details. Maybe they were more involved than we know, but I want to make sure that everyone understands the viewpoint that I've heard expressed by them. Wasn't that necessarily A.J. Bouye was like the premier guy that we should have been targeting, anything like that. I think that they were just surprised at the value he was traded at for a 4th-round pick, saying that he's clearly would step in from day one and probably be the most polished, most respected guy we would have on the defense in the secondary, especially on the outside. So from that perspective, they thought the value made a lot of sense, you know, so forth, so forth. That was, from what I understand, the argument is the value. The value of the player just seemed like a guy who could drastically, you know, improve your defense, you know, from a coverage standpoint and come in and step in right away and be the best cornerback you would have on the outside. I'm not completely sold on that argument, but I certainly understand it. I certainly think that there is a valid point to it to where it could be argued. And what I will say is when I looked at A.J. Bouye's film, I don't think his film was particularly bad. I think he's got some letdowns. I think he has some issues when it comes to his athleticism, doesn't always line up with faster, more athletic receivers. He gets beat sometimes by them.
Get on a roll, which we've seen here in the second half. Tannehill, perfect throw. AJ.
But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look, and let's take a look at what this guy is. Like, how does he play in this scheme? Okay. Let's take some comparisons to players that are similar to him. One good thing is you can look to the other corner he played alongside with for a couple of years in Jalen Ramsey, who is a very similar body style corner, and get feedback from that. You can look at Jalen Mills, also very similar. All three of these guys were used in very similar ways. They all played in that kind of cover 3 scheme. I mean, this is what these guys are. So without further ado, guys, let's jump into it, and I'm going to talk about the physical attributes of these 3 athletes and how they kind of stack and compare.
He threw it behind him. That would have been a catch and tackle.
To begin with, I do think A.J. Bouye has pretty ideal size. I mean, he's 6 foot, 186 pounds. He's roughly pretty similar in stature and build to, you know, a guy like Jalen Mills. He's got 31 3/4 inch arms. He's got the length. It's not like he's got those, you know, T-Rex arms out there trying to play outside at the corner position. Look, I do think that sometimes the arm length can get, you know, your reach and your wingspan can get overplayed if you're playing in a man, you know, kind of system. Of course, man pressure, arm length does kind of matter a little bit, but when you're playing man on man, I don't think arm length matters that much, other than it gives you a little bit more range for the ball. But I don't think it's as important as when you're playing a zone where you're trying to close in throwing windows more than anything. With that said, A.J. Bouye he measures out pretty similar to a guy like Jalen Mills, but he doesn't quite, match the physical stature of a Jalen Ramsey, although they're similar, but Jalen Ramsey was just an athletic freak.
You don't want them problems. I'm telling you, you don't want them problems.
I mean, if you really go back and you look at the 2017 Jaguars, I mean, they thought they had their two players to run that outside cover three kind of zone type system. Similar body types, but Jalen Ramsey's just an athletic freak, guys. I mean, he's 6'1", 209 pounds, and he's got those, massive freaking, reach at 33 3/8 inch arms. I mean, the dude's a genetic freak. I mean, you don't find many football players like that. Hence the reason people were giving up 2 first-round picks for Jalen Ramsey, because he had the physical tools you look for to back up the production and game film that you saw on him. That's why people were spending so much money to acquire that kind of talent. Of course, the argument's always comes around to how important are corners. Clearly, Jacksonville thought they were very important because they had, Ramsey up at, 13, 14 million himself. On the other side, you got, another $13 million a year guy in AJ Bouye. So, I mean, Jacksonville definitely spent money there. And there were some similar statures to the way that they played and the way it is. And that's what I'm going to show you now, guys. I'm going to flip and I'm going to show you film of the way that Jacksonville played these two cornerbacks, because Jacksonville loved to play a similar style to Dallas, to where they did one side, the corner was kind of backed off, and the other side he was playing more up in a press or in a man-type situation, like a man press. And that's the way that Jacksonville loved to run their defense.
Here is a handoff to him.
So the Jaguars, like I stated before, really love to play AJ Bouye in that kind of up on the line press kind of concept, and they would rotate between AJ Bouye and using, Jalen Ramsey in that same situation, because they had the luxury of having two guys who were able to play that. Same way the Eagles, definitely go back and look at 2017. The Eagles love playing Jalen Mills like that. They would come up, using him up tight in press. You would see him start off like he was going to press, and he would fall back into that zone. You see a lot of the same kind of concepts with AJ Bouye being used there in Jacksonville. Listen, Jacksonville really played early in downs. They would play a cover three, defense in their secondary, but they were a little more base package than the Eagles. So they played a little more 43 base than what you would see Philadelphia do. Philadelphia fell into that nickel and those, sub packages a little more frequently than Jacksonville. I mean, everyone kind of runs them when you go into 3 wide receiver sets, but nonetheless, you would see Jacksonville play more because they felt more comfortable in the linebacker play they had to cover a slot receiver, to cover a tight end down the field. So there were some slight differences in the defense in itself, but nonetheless, a lot of similarities as well. Watch as Bouye starts off in the man press and then backs off. If the Eagles had made a acquisition or a trade to acquire AJ Bouye, if you were to ask me who I thought legitimately he would have been brought in to replace, to me, it is quite clear that is Jalen Mills' replacement if you do that. Both in their physical stature and how similar they are. AJ Bouye being 6 foot, 186 pounds, with 31 3/4 inch arms, compared to Jalen Mills being 6 foot, 191 pounds, with 31 and I believe was it 3/8 or 1/8 inch arms. So very similar from a physical stature. Also, the style of the game is the same. Look at the way the Philadelphia Eagles love to utilize Jalen Mills. You'll see quite clearly Jalen Mills is playing up in the press position. And this is the first game of 2017, guys, while you have Ronald Darby playing more in the off-press position. So think about what I showed you before from Jacksonville, to where you had AJ Bouye up close in that press position, and then you had Jalen Ramsey backed off in the off coverage. So to me, what you're really advocating for is 2 seasons at $13 million for a 29-year-old AJ Bouye to replace a younger, less expensive Jalen Mills. Could you make a legitimate argument that AJ Bouye is the better player? 100%. I won't fight you on that one. I think you're right. Is he worth that much more money, though? $13 million, guys? Are we sure that he's that, good of a football player to be warranted $13 million? That's where I hesitate. It's not on the 4th round value. I do think that, yes, AJ Bouye is going to be better than unless you really strike gold in the 4th round, bringing in a 4th round draft pick, at least initially and right away. Keep in mind, AJ Bouye was undrafted, I believe. So I think there's an argument there. To me, it's the money, it's the monetary value of the player. $13 million to play that role. Is he good enough for that? That's where I differ with a lot of people. I don't buy into that. Why does the Eagles walk Mills into the box on that Washington motion? I know some of you guys are probably thinking like, okay, Steve, you made your point that these two are very similar players, AJ Bouye and Jalen Mills. They're utilized in very similar ways, but my gut instinct, and I'm pretty sure your gut instinct right now is probably telling you that AJ Bouye is probably just a better athlete in terms of the physical athletic abilities compared to a Jalen Mills. Well, the thing is, it didn't show up in the testing. So we went over his physical stature being 6 foot, 186 pounds, 31 and 3/4 inch arms. He's got a little longer reach than Jalen Mills, but not drastically. He's got about half inch, longer reach or so. Not even quite half inch, to be quite honest. So when you look at other things, though, if you get into the testing, the results, what you can see is that AJ Bouye ran a 4.640. The reason, if you go look it up, guys, it's going to show you 4.55. The reason you round that up 1/5 of a second, so a fifth of a second, is due to the fact of hand timers when you do pro days. So you have to round up a little bit there. So it rounds up to a 4.640. He's got a 36.5 inch vertical. He ran a 7.06 3-cone and a 4.04 20-yard shuttle. So what this should tell you guys is this. Your 3 cones tell you how fluid a person's movements are. So how fluid are they in their movements, and gives you a little idea of their agility. He was nowhere near quite as good as Jalen Ramsey's 6.94 in that. And of course, Jalen Ramsey also ran a 4.4 140. So Jalen Ramsey, like I said, he's a freak. But his 20-yard shuttle actually was better than Jalen Ramsey's. He ran a 4.04, and Jalen Ramsey ran a 4.18 in the 20-yard shuttle. The 20-yard shuttle really tells you about an athlete's ability to change directions, which when you look at Ramsey, it doesn't surprise me that AJ Bouye is a little better at changing directions because he's much lighter. He's 6 foot, he's an inch shorter, and 186 pounds compared to Jalen Ramsey's 209. So you're talking what, 96, 206? You're talking more than a 24-pound or so, 23-pound difference in weight on a 1 inch. So not a surprise AJ Bouye changes direction better. But now let's take that and let's turn it over and let's look at his athleticism in terms of the measurements compared to Jalen Mills. And I think that's where you kind of get a little more insight to what's going on here.
Don't accept to be, mediocre. I always try to do the extra mile and everything like that, whether it's watching film.
I do like the approach that the young man takes to the game when we talk about AJ Bouye. That is one thing I am very impressed with since I've done film study and I've learned a lot about this kid, is that sometimes there are, the intangible things that you can't measure. And I do think that the kid has a good head on his shoulders. Just like Jalen Mills, I think the intangible thing that Jalen Mills brings is that fiery competitiveness that keeps the players motivated. I think that, you look at a guy like AJ Bouye, he's got that perception, that inner kind of belief in himself, and like this understanding about, sometimes you're never going to achieve perfection, but you got to get up every day and try to be better than you were the day before. I think he's got that down pat. I think he has a good head on the shoulders. But back to the physical measurements, let's talk about Jalen Mills. When you look at AJ Bouye's numbers and you compare it to Jalen Mills, what you get is a 4.6 140 by Mills, okay, a 37-inch vertical, a 6.86 3-cone. Look, for all the crap we give Jalen Mills in terms of the way he was measured, Jalen Mills is a very fluid and agile mover. And by the way, his 4-second flat 20-yard shuttle, just shows you that the kid has really good change of direction. So Jalen Mills actually tested probably a little better than AJ Bouye. He was a 1/10 of a second slower in the 40. He jumped about a 1/2 of an inch further in the vertical, had a better 3-cone and 20-yard shuttle than AJ Bouye. So, I think the question becomes with Jalen Mills is he's been injured a lot. Have those injuries started to make us feel here that maybe Jalen Mills is losing some of his athletic ability due to these injuries, and they're just mounting up to the point that he's not the same player anymore? But Jalen Mills is a lot younger than AJ Bouye. So that has to be taken into consideration. Similar, similar body of work, what they do in terms of how they're utilized. Of course, AJ Bouye had 2 really phenomenal years to where he's accomplished something that maybe Jalen Mills hasn't yet. But on the flip side, when you do the measurements, Jalen Mills measures better. But there's one more thing we probably need to talk about AJ Bouye. Let's talk about what the actual analytics and metrics say about his play, especially over the past 2 seasons.
Do you think you improved your draft stock today?
Oh, for sure. I ran mid 4.4.
All right, guys, the advanced analytics I'm about to use in metrics, I got them from primarily 2 places. So you can go to playerprofiler.com, which I was going to use them specifically, but unfortunately their website, like they have some information up, but it looks like they're redoing some things there. But go to playerprofiler.com to look at stuff like this. Or you can go to Pro Football References, Advanced Analytics and Metrics for Defenses, and you can pull up these type of stats. So the combination of the two. So AJ Bouye, on the season, according to Player Profiler, he was targeted 25.7% of snaps that he was in on. It's not bad. That worked out to be a total completion. This is according to this is Pro Football References now. He gave up 60 completions for 855 yards. Sorry about that, guys. That was tongue twister for some reason. That worked out to be about a 65.2% completion, 14.3 yards per average reception. He gave up 3 touchdowns. He had 1 interception and 3 pass breakups. He did give up a pretty respectable .99 separation, yards per separation, so almost 1 yard of separation, per target. So that works out to be basically, guys, the way they measure that is they're looking at when the ball is coming in, as it's about to come into the receiver's hands, where the cornerback is in relation to that. And then his overall QBR was 101.5. All right, now let's turn that around, and we can see that he didn't have that great of a year, but it wasn't that bad of a year compared to like Jalen Mills either. So you kind of have to weigh this together. So I'll show you guys Jalen Mills' combined stats.
Undrafted, fake it, off the boot, Tannehill, perfect.
Jalen Mills. Target rate, 25.1%, targeted a little less than Bouye was. Completions, 31 on the season, 530 yards. Works out to about 57.4% completion rate. But of those 31 completions, they worked out to be about a 17.1 yard average. Guys, if you look at different databases for analytics and metrics, you might get some slight variance here. So, for example, the ones I just gave you here, these come from Pro Football References. However, if you went to go look at Player Profiler, they have them credited for 34 and 554 or something like that, which worked out to like 16 point something on average. So just know that there is some variance because of who they're crediting the reception being against. Same thing can happen with touchdowns given up. That kind of thing can definitely swing if one analytics group has a better understanding than the other in terms of the coverage scheme and whose responsibility it was. So, on the year, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 4 pass breakups. His target separation, this is probably the thing that most of us were concerned about, 1.25 on the season compared to the 0.99 given up by Bouye, and then his QBR was 107.8 compared to Bouye's 101.5. Now, I don't think you can make a legitimate argument that Jalen Mills is the better player right now, the better player last season per se, or has had the highs that Bouye has experienced in his career. Keep in mind, Jalen Mills will only be, I think, 26 years old, guys. Bouye is going to be 29 at the start of the season. That has to be factored in. The last thing I want to share with you guys is some even deeper and detailed advanced analytics and metrics. This I'm going to use RotoWire. I just want to really dive into the difference between home and away, grass and turf, things of that sort, guys. So when you go look at AJ Bouye and you look at those, home and away stats, if you go down to his completion percentage, what you get is a 58.7 completion percentage at home versus an 80.6 completion percentage away. Yardage 349, 466, touchdowns 1 home, 2 away. Keep looking down. Look at the quarterback ratings, right? So at home, he 80.8 quarterback rating against him, Away, 137.3. I mean, it's just crazy stuff. And then go look at grass and turf differences. So on grass, 99.2. On turf, 126.7 QB ratings. Completion percentage on grass, 63.2. On turf, 81.8. You can look at outdoors and indoors. He gave up 65.2% completion percentage outdoors compared to 84.6 indoors. It's just crazy. You can go to wins and losses, guys. 63.3 in wins, completion percentage for 71.2 in losses. Go over here to quarterback ratings and wins, 72.9 and losses, 127.5. Guys, even go down and break it down by quarters. He was not very good in the second. Well, I'm sorry, guys. He wasn't very good in the first quarter in terms of quarterback rating. He was horrible in the third quarter in terms of quarterback rating, 147.7. And then even completion percentage, giving up 95.7% completion percentage in the third quarter. I don't know what it was about the third quarter about A.J. Bouye, but, dude, he was not good in the third quarter. The point of all this is he was a very inconsistent football player last season, and it has to be accounted for. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for watching. Once again, if you're new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. All my old G's, hit that thumbs up button. And by the way, listen, I do have a first round mock draft video that will be released before the weekend. So stay tuned for that, guys. It's coming up. It will be released before Sunday, possibly tomorrow. I will be doing a first round mock draft, especially now that we've received what appears to be some resolution out this whole Jason Peters situation I talked about yesterday. All right, y'all. Questions of the day. Look, we all know Bouye's already gone anyways. All this is, due to the interest we had of him, not any kind of prospect of obtaining the individual. So, number one, knowing what you know now, that I've provided a lot of background information on this young man. Would you want to pay $13 million a year, for the next 2 seasons for a guy of Bouye's abilities? Keep in mind, this would greatly limit our ability to sign other free agents. The bottom line is, if you round our available cap space up to $44 million, $13 million accounts for roughly about 29 to 30% of that available cap space. Is that really the type of player you want to spend that kind of money on? Number two, what about Jalen Mills? Bouye has been traded, so that ship sailed. We all know that. However, what about signing back a similar but less accomplished player like a Jalen Mills? Mills and Bouye, as I showed you, are very similar type football players. They're used in very similar ways. Look, Mills knows our scheme. He knows our coaches, obviously. He knows our players, obviously. And we know he's a very fierce competitor. What about bringing Mills back on a much lower contract, for $5 million maybe, compared to paying $13 million for a guy like Bouye? Do you think that might be the better option? To me, I think you got to be careful with these 29, 30-year-old cornerbacks we're looking into. You guys know this. You've been watching football for a long time. Corners and receivers, they fall off at different rates depending on the player. But some guys, it can happen at 30, it can happen at 31, it can happen at 32. But generally speaking, by 35, that decrease and that decline is very sudden for corners or wide receivers. You just kind of fall off very quickly. Number three, do you anticipate the Eagles spending a high draft pick on a corner? Me personally, I think we will pay one of the big three, one of those big free agents. I think we're going to spend the money, and that's where we're going to invest a lot of our money during free agency. But with that said, I do expect the Eagles to still dip back in the draft. I'm going to say around the third or fourth round to pull a corner out. I just think the Eagles are going to reach and try to find a corner. I don't think they feel that secure with that, that position right now. With that said, I want to know your thoughts. Look, like I said, guys, there are a lot of people that I greatly respect who are really high on A.J. Bouye. I did all this because I greatly respect those people. So I wanted to take the time to really dig down and discover, why am I so lukewarm about A.J. Bouye? Why are so many other people that I greatly respect and I talk to on a very regular basis so high on a player that I'm like, I don't see it? Just keep in mind, there are differences of opinions out there, and there are some people who are much higher on this player than I am. But with that said, I want to know your thoughts on this particular player. I want to know your thoughts on this particular situation. All right, y'all. Peace. I'm out of here. Y'all know how we end these videos. We do a little something like we go E-A-E-L-E-S. All right, y'all. Let's go Eagles, guys.